So one of the questions I get asked about a lot is thermal pads. Should I change them? How do I change them? Best tips. A lot of questions about that. So typically when I buy a used GPU, I don't change the thermal pads as long as they're still good, pliable, like some of these over here. They're still squishy, they're thick. I don't change them, and I rarely change them on used GPUs. But today, on my personal GPU, I'm going to change them, and I'll show you some tips, tricks, and a real cool kit that I found on the internet that actually makes this a lot easier. So about a month or two ago, I had upgraded my 3080 Ti, and I went with the EVGA hybrid cooler. This thing worked great and phenomenal. I really don't have any major complaints about it, just little things. Number one, just because I was using a big cooler in the 4000D, I'm using a 360 millimeter cooler. There's not a lot of room. The hoses were bent a lot more than I'd like, and yeah, I could go ahead and get a bigger case, but for my area, a bigger case is not ideal. So I decided to actually go ahead and go back to the stock cooler, which the stock cooler worked great with this card. I just wanted a little extra performance, but then again, I wasn't really utilizing it. So I wouldn't say I wasted money. I would just say it was a learning experience. So when I took this apart, one of the issues that I ran into is that the thermal pads just got all jacked up. And it was probably my fault. I didn't take them out properly, and I was taking them out as soon as I did a heat soak and some testing on the GPU, so that's probably one of the issues. So now we need some thermal pads. So I went ahead, took this card apart, get ready to go over here, and I think probably in the future I'll end up switching to a custom water cooling loop. I think I'm gonna experiment with the dark side on that one. So this is where we're at. The card has been stripped apart, and as you can see, we have a lot of I would say some of the remnants of the pads, and we need to clean them off. And the same thing over here, I need to take these off, clean them off. I'll probably try to save these, and it's kind of good to, you can reuse them, maybe for another card that might be missing one or something like that. So I'll try to save them the best I can. So now if you look, we got a lot of the remnants on it. It's not terrible, but it's not ideal. So typically what I just do is I take a Q-tip, and these come off really easy, and they just kind of stick to the Q-tip. Kind of just like so. And then I'll rotate it to get my money's worth out of my Q-tip. And it always goes back to that you want a clean surface anytime you're doing anything, that is. And the same thing up here, we'll do that. I've already cleaned off the thermal paste. So we're just gonna go ahead and get all this off. So now that I've got that mostly clean, what I'll go ahead and do is use some isopropyl alcohol on the Q-tip just to kind of wipe it off. And it's all about just getting a clean surface. And it's the same thing when you're doing these dyes over here. You just want to clean everything up. And I do this anytime I have to change a thermal pad. I just go through each one, give it a good cleaning. Because the first one is just to take off the remnants, and this is just to kind of make sure the surface is nice and clean. So now for the card, it's kind of going to be the same thing. You can use your hand and kind of pull them off nice and easy. Like this one comes off easy. And I'll put them on a piece of cardboard over here on the side just to keep them safe. Now what I found is plastic razors work great. They don't gouge, and they really get in there. So if you have ones that are kind of stuck, just kind of use this to kind of get it underneath and start it. And as you see, it comes right off. And then you just pull gently. And this is assuming that you want to save these. In this case, I'm only saving them just, you never know, for a rainy day. But make sure you use a plastic razor. I'm sure you could use a credit card, but the razor has that little fine edge to get into it a lot easier. Now these were the ones that got messed up. I'm not as worried about them. I'm more so doing this just to make life a little easier as far as clean. It's kind of like Play-Doh. And the rest of this we'll clean off with the alcohol, Q-tips, and all that good stuff. And now I got my shop towel with some isopropyl. That will kind of help clean this up. Same thing for this side, just to get off that residual. And then we can go ahead and just give this a nice good cleaning. All right, and we're done. So now we move on to the new pads. So now for the pads, you got a couple of options. You could buy the sheets, which could get expensive because you'll buy a whole sheet and you're probably going to use a couple of pieces of it. Plus you got to get different thicknesses. As far as the thicknesses, what I typically do is I'll check on the forums, I'll check on the manufacturer's websites. I've in the past, like ASUS pads, I've emailed ASUS customer support and they've told me the thicknesses on it. I mean, then they also remind you that they're not liable, but anyway, that's another story for that. So those are the few options that you can do if you need to figure out the thickness. I got on the website and I found this company, and this is not sponsored. I bought this with my own money, Critical Thermal Pads. And I bought this set. It's for the 3080, 3080 Ti XC3s. So now getting on their website, for the 30 series cards, mostly the 3080s, 3080 Ti's and 3090s, they actually have the custom sets for it. But if you need to get the full sheets, you can get the 100 by 100 millimeter sheets and just buy the thicknesses that you need. Reading the reviews, there's claims that this has actually helped with temperatures and reduced it, better performance. I mean, I mostly need the pads just because I need to put my stock cooler on, but a few extra degrees and FPSs couldn't hurt. So this is the set. It's pretty much how it's supposed to look and how it comes. And it's ready to go, all cut, which saves a lot of headache and the hassle, and you don't have to worry about trying to figure out the thicknesses of it or just buying a whole bunch of different pads. Now, one thing I do like about the website is that you click the model that I bought. So I bought the EVGA 3080, 3080 Ti XC3, and it shows you where all the pads are supposed to go. So it kind of takes the guesswork out if you just didn't take pictures or just view the evidence of where the old pads was. So now with these pads, they do have the protected film on it, so make sure you take them off. You know, you don't want to leave that on. That's just bad practice. All right, and this one goes on this chip, so we're going to try to center it up as best as I can. These come off pretty easy, which is real nice. I'm going to set this one up here. Kind of the same deal. All right, everything's put in, looks good. Some of them were a little longer, so I just went ahead and just took a blade and just trimmed them slightly. But other than that, this thing is good and ready to go. So I'm gonna put some thermal paste on this, put this thing back together, and see how the temps are. All right, so everything's put back together. I mean, installation is the reverse of just taking everything apart. It just varies and just depends on your card and your setup. So pretty much I've been running this test for about 30 minutes. My temperatures are about 85, 86 Celsius. This is 1080p extreme. I don't have a comparison because I don't have the information on hand of what it was before with the original thermal pads. I'll check my video footage. If I have it, I'll put it up on the screen just to see if it is better or if it's worse. But for the most part, the biggest thing that I was going for is that my thermal pads were jacked up. I didn't want to go crazy buying a whole bunch of different sheets, and for $30, Critical Thermal Pads, they work great. Easy installation, no modding, no cutting, and yeah, just something to do. So as far as my temperatures, I think they could be better. I got some airflow issues going on, and like I said, I think I'm gonna end up eventually going with a custom water cooling loop just to kind of help resolve that. I don't want to go to bigger case, but having two AIOs in here was just not ideal and created some other issues that I ran into. So thanks for watching. We'll see what we'll come up with next.